Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're jumping into 1952 in the United States. It's a year people often look back on, maybe with rose-tinted glasses. But it was, well, pretty complex. We're going to unpack the sources you've given us, try to find some, surprising connections, see how this era really set the stage for modern life in ways we might still feel.
Absolutely. 1952, it wasn't just isolated events happening. It was this real convergence point. You had economic boom times, big cultural shifts happening. And simmering underneath, or maybe right alongside, the significant global tension. It's a fascinating mix. A nation finding its feet, definitely, but also grappling with its role in a changing world, a scary world in some ways.
Right, so let's start with the money. The economy in 1952, what did life actually cost? What could people, afford? Our sources point to an average household income of about $4,000, which, sounds incredibly low to us now.
It does, but you have to put it in context, right? That $4,000, it really represented solid post-war recovery. Prosperity was genuinely rising for a lot of people. It wasn't just a number. It reflected industry booming, consumer confidence growing. People felt they were getting ahead after the war years. And what that income did was enable a lifestyle that felt, well, aspirational, but reachable for many.
And what could you buy? That's where it gets really interesting. This is the consumer boom starting. Like a new car, maybe a Ford Crestline or that classic Chevy Bel Air. Around $1,600. Think about that. The car industry was just exploding, getting people out into these new suburbs.
Exactly.
And speaking of suburbs, a new house, average cost about $19,000. That's directly tied to that suburban sprawl we associate with the 50s. The dream home becoming real. Or if you rented, maybe around $88 a month. Still pretty affordable, offered some flexibility.
Yeah, and this really underscores a key point about 52, that economic stability, it wasn't just about bank accounts. It was the engine driving huge societal changes. That growing middle class, fueled by decent incomes, that directly powered the dream of owning a home, having a car.
Yeah.
Mobility, it changed where people lived, how they got around.
Judgmental.
And just day-to-day stuff. Groceries for a family of 4, maybe $50 a week, suggests, stable food supplies, a sense of abundance after wartime rationing. That feeling of domestic plenty really became part of the American identity then.
A real shift.
Okay, so people have jobs, they have money, they have homes, cars. What were they doing for fun? How did they express themselves? Culturally, 1952 was buzzing, lots of shifts happening. And one of the biggest, maybe the biggest, was television. Its rise was just meteoric. It wasn't just a box in the corner. It was changing how people connected, how they got their entertainment, their news, and shows like I Love Lucy. They weren't just funny. They became this shared national experience. Everyone talked about them. It kind of reflected the humor, the charm of the time, maybe even shaped it a bit. Brought families together around the TV set, a new ritual.
Amazing how fast that happened. And music-wise, the #1 song, Fats Domino, Blueberry Hill, real upbeat R&B track, just captured the mood. And yeah, on TV, I Love Lucy. Total phenomenon, Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz, just brilliant. Now what about fashion? Clothes often tell a story, right? What was the look?
They really do.
For men, you could get a sharp suit for around $45. Casual stuff, sweaters, slacks, maybe $20. Sort of sophisticated, but also comfortable. Maybe loosening up after the war. For women, dresses averaged about $30. Often that classic 50s silhouette, fitted waist, full skirt, very elegant, optimistic.
That's a great way to put it, optimistic. These trends, they weren't just about looking good. They mirrored that post-war feeling, moving away from austerity, embracing a bit of style, comfort, elegance. It reflected a kind of national confidence returning, a visual identity for a nation feeling good about itself again.
But it wasn't all just poodle skirts and rock and roll, was it? Behind the scenes, 1952 saw some huge leaps in science, technology, stuff that would change everything. Let's start with medicine. The polio vaccine. Developed by Dr. Jonas Salk, its widespread use was really taking hold, a massive step against an epidemic that terrified families.
Oh, absolutely crucial. The polio vaccine, it wasn't just a scientific win, it was a public health revolution. It gave people real, tangible hope against this disease that crippled so many kids. Think about the fear parents lived with, summer outbreaks, pools closing. This vaccine started to lift that enormous burden. Its impact on just everyday peace of mind was immense, transformative.
And then, a more fundamental scientific discovery. 1952 was also when James Watson and Francis Crick figured out the structure of DNA.
Right, the double helix. Now, its full impact, wasn't obvious to the public right away, like the polio vaccine. But this discovery, it laid the groundwork for basically our entire modern understanding of life, of genetics. It quietly opened doors to revolutions in biology, medicine, stuff we're still exploring today. A real sleeper breakthrough with just seismic consequences down the line.
And on a more everyday level, innovations making home life easier. Sources mention things like the countertop blender becoming available, better washing machines.
Yeah, don't underestimate those.
Right, yeah.
They might seem small next to DNA, but they made a real difference. Convenience, altering daily routines, especially for women running the household. These were early steps toward automating housework, freeing up time and energy. It subtly changed the rhythm of domestic life for a lot of families.
Okay, so we've got prosperity, pop culture, science breakthroughs, easier home life. But let's widen the lens again, because 1952 wasn't happening in a vacuum. There were big political things going on, global anxieties.
Definitely. It wasn't all cozy domesticity.
The main event politically, the presidential election. Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower versus Democrat Adlai Stevenson. Ike Eisenhower, his big things were ending the Korean War, strong national defense.
And that message really hit home for voters. You have to remember the context. The Cold War was very real. The Korean War was dragging on. People were worried. So talk about strong leadership, about dealing with those global threats. That resonated. It showed what was on people's minds, a desire for stability in a pretty uncertain world.
Yeah, that backdrop of the Cold War,
Oh, yeah.
the fear of communism, it was pervasive. And our sources highlight something really stark from 1952 related to that. The U.S. tested the first ever hydrogen bomb, H-bomb. A massive escalation in nuclear power showed technological might, but also deeply chilling.
Chilling is the right word.
And related to defense, the average monthly pay for someone in the military was about $200, which kind of reflects how significant that military commitment was in this tense era.
It really does. And it brings up this powerful paradox, doesn't it? You've got this incredible domestic prosperity, this fun culture emerging, scientific progress. And at the exact same time, you have the H-bomb, the Cold War heating up, this palpable global tension. How did those coexist? It shows the complexity of the time. That feeling of security at home was always sort of shadowed by this intense international uncertainty. The threat was always there. Maybe that dream home felt a bit like a sanctuary against a scary world.
So wrapping this up, what's the takeaway from 1952? This deep dive, it really shows a year of contrasts, isn't it? Amazing economic growth, cultural shifts, science moving forward, but all happening alongside, or maybe because of, these deep global anxieties and military developments. A nation building a comfortable life internally while trying to navigate a really dangerous world externally.
I think that captures it perfectly. 1952 really encapsulated that post-war mix of optimism and adaptation. It was setting the stage for so much of modern life, for sure, but doing it while wrestling with these huge existential challenges. It does make you wonder, doesn't it? How often do periods of great domestic comfort line up with times of intense global fear? What does that dynamic tell us about progress? Is it just how things work?
When you look at all these different pieces, the average salary, I Love Lucy, the H-bomb, the polio vaccine, what really jumps out for me, maybe it's how connected it all is, how a family buying a car connects to global politics, how a TV show reflects deeper anxieties or hopes. It makes you think, how do these threads, seemingly so different, weave together to make history? And maybe ask yourself, what echoes of 1952, that blend of home comfort and global unease, do you still hear around us today?